The transition towards a new administration continues in the United States as President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office. Hello, I'm Mike Walter, sitting in for Anna Naidu, and this is The Heat. With just about 2 months to go before Donald Trump returns to the White House as U.S. president, he is putting together his team. But Trump had a setback this week when his pick for Attorney General withdrew his nomination. Matt Gaetz was a controversial choice as he faced allegations of sexual misconduct and drug use that he has constantly denied. Trump was quick to name a replacement. He now wants a strong supporter and former member of his legal team, Pam Bondi, to head up the Justice Department. For more on this and some of the other major figures we're likely to see in the new Trump administration, joining me now from Florida is Eric Bolling. He is a best-selling author and host of the Eric Bolling Podcast. Also with us is Imani. She's Associate Professor of Digital Storytelling at the George Washington University. And joining the discussion, too, is Rina Shah. She's a political analyst and commentator. And with me here in the studio on set is Joel Rubin. He is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for House Affairs. And I want to welcome all of you to the broadcast. Eric, why don't I start with you? Gaetz is out as the choice for Attorney General after being dogged by these allegations of sex with a minor, charges he has denied. He also faced some stinging criticism that he really wasn't up for the job, didn't have the experience, was unqualified. Was this kind of an overreach for Trump?
You know, I don't think it was an overreach. I think it was a signal. I think Trump was sending a signal to all the detractors that they were completely wrong. And if you remember, we've been on this show together talking about this. This election win is a mandate. It's an American mandate. He won. The popular vote wasn't supposed to. He won every single swing state. The people basically said, Donald Trump, do what you need to do. Everything they've been telling us on the mainstream media, the propaganda media, has been a lie. We've been in support of your policy. So Trump says, I'll pick Gaetz, I'll pick RFK Jr., I'll pick Pete Hegseth. They're controversial picks, no doubt. But these people weren't picked because of their qualifications. They're picked because they've been loyalists to Donald Trump. They have his same vision in mind, and that's why they were picked. So all of those people who say, you know, Gaetz didn't really have the experience, he didn't really have the chops to be the Attorney General. Well, I'll remind the leftists, the Democrats, that John F. Kennedy appointed Robert Kennedy as his Attorney General with absolutely no experience, barely out of law school, 33-year-old. So forget that. And also, this is Donald Trump's way of doing things. He's going to direct the whole policy boat in Washington, D.C. He and Stephen Miller, who's another good friend of mine as well. I don't think this was a mistake by any means. I think Matt Gaetz really stepped down because he was tired of the distraction and the heat. I know for a fact he spoke to Trump yesterday, and maybe it was a discussion that they had between them. Matt is a very close friend of mine. I know Trump as well. So this was probably Trump saying, look, it's just a little too hot. And he, by the way, replaced Matt Gaetz with another very strong Trump loyalist, Pam Bondi, who was the former Attorney General of the state of Florida.
Actually, that's where I was going to go next to Joel. So you set it up nicely for me. I was going to mention that she was the former Attorney General in Florida. More of kind of what you would assume would be kind of a traditional pick when somebody comes into a new administration. Yeah. In fact, Jeb Bush, who's never been a close friend of Donald Trump's, jumped on Twitter right away to congratulate her. Is she likely to have a much easier go of it, do you think?
Well, Mike, first and foremost, she's qualified. She was an Attorney General of a major state. And to what Eric said, Matt Gaetz was not qualified. He really was not a pick to actually run our Justice Department, be the nation's top law enforcement officer. So it's going to be a hard confirmation battle, I'm sure. She'll get hard questions about her loyalties potentially to the president as opposed to representing all of America and being loyal to the Constitution. We'll see how she answers those questions. But, you know, it's a stark difference from Matt Gaetz. And let's be very clear. Matt Gaetz decided to step down the day after he made the rounds in the Senate and met with Senate Republicans, and he probably went home at night and said, my God, I'm not going to get confirmed by a majority Senate run by Republicans, so I got to get out of this. And he did, and he fell on his sword.
What about what Eric pointed out about, Jack Kennedy picking his brother, nepotism, not just and
Yeah,
the
well,
inexperience.
we've moved away from that model. That's not a model to replicate. That's a model to move away from. That was, look, I wasn't alive then, so I can't remember what the public reaction was then, but that is not the model you want. What you want in an attorney general is somebody who will be loyal to the Constitution, uphold the rule of law, be on the side of all the American people, not be the personal attorney of the president. That is not the job, and nepotism is not a good model.
May I just point out,
Yeah,
since
Eric, go ahead.
Joe only remembers, the last couple of presidents because he want to study history. Let's take Barack Obama, who had Merrick Garland as his attorney general, who
He did not have him as his attorney general.
Called parents.
No, that was Biden.
Who called parents domestic terrorists, the ones that were protesting in school board meetings, also the one who directed the Justice Department against Donald Trump. And I wouldn't be bringing this up if it wasn't today that they announced that the last final, lawfare straw that they were throwing at Donald Trump is now indefinitely postponed. So you want to talk about being independent from the White House, you can't look at
There's
the Biden.
no tie to the White House on the special counsel investigation that Jack Smith led. And I don't think you can find any documentation to that. And what Joe Biden did as president was consistently state, I have a separation. My attorney general is separate from me. He is the attorney general for the American people.
Why did they drop all the cases, Joel? Why did all those cases go away when Trump won?
Why did they all fold? Because, look, the reality is the Supreme Court made decisions and the election was won by Donald Trump. That is not for the president to decide. That is for the system, the rule of law to decide, and that's what took place.
All right, Rina, I want to bring you into the discussion because another choice to be the next defense secretary is Pete Hegseth. He's a former military veteran, also a Fox News host. He's also been in the spotlight because of allegations in 2017 that came to light this week, also involving a sexual assault allegation. Now, Hegseth told reporters on Thursday, quote, the matter was fully investigated and I was completely cleared. How is this one likely to play out, do you think?
Yeah, I think Hegseth is going to face a number of landmines in the Senate. I don't think the confirmation hearings will be very easy for him because he does have a very interesting past, one that certainly has Ivy League pedigree and combat veteran, a nice mix for what we would think is an all-American Department of Defense secretary. Somebody to head up that department almost on paper looks perfect, but then you've got these credible allegations of sexual assault, and then there's more beneath the surface. Tattoos that some have said linked to white supremacy, allegations of his extremism while he was in the ranks. So again, I don't think the senators will give him a pass. I think there'll be really tough questions for him to answer. I always felt that Gaetz would not get confirmed. I think rumors have been swirling in the past couple of days in Washington that there's another shoe about to drop, and it's going to be Hegseth withdrawing. Now, I don't know how much weight those rumors hold, how much truth is there, but the reality is this: is that he could be another one that just a few senators could tank that nomination. And I think overall what I'm looking at when I look at these picks, I'm looking for, obviously, we've just had this great discussion here about qualifications versus personality, and then the sense that some of these people are being picked because they will carry out Trump's wishes, right? But we need to be very clear as well. It seems to always be a little bit more there that's unsavory with Trump's picks, and maybe that's just kind of what he's going for. On one hand, he does want to show it to the world as well as to his Democrat foes that he's going to be different this time. That's no surprise. I mean, he was shut out of the White House for 4 years. What do you expect, the man to come back and want to be quiet and do things just the same as he did in his first term? Absolutely not. But this is what I really want to get at. And this was not mentioned between my two co-panelists when they talk about Pam Bondi, who just got Trump's nod for Attorney General. Let's not forget, just prior to 2016, when Trump ran for the White House the first time, there were serious investigations swirling in Florida about Trump University. And Trump made a $25,000 contribution to Pam Bondi's campaign. And suddenly, well, within a short period of time, Pam Bondi, the then Florida Attorney General, a seat she'd been in since 2011, and then she no longer was in after 2019. This was around 2016. She suddenly dropped these charges, these investigations, whatever they were. I'm not quite sure on that. She dropped them, though. That's the important part after that contribution came in. Now, of course, Trump and Bondi both have said there was no quid pro quo, but that right there is the number one thing that gives me pause about Pam Bondi.
Interesting. Well, Imani, I want to get you in this conversation as well. We already heard Eric Bolling talking about the first Robert Kennedy and his selection as Attorney General. We also know that Joel wasn't alive for the first Robert Kennedy. I was. I was a kid at the time, but we're all alive for Robert Kennedy Jr., and he has been tabbed to be the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. He wants to make America healthy again, he says. He wants to tackle issues like obesity. He's been criticized for some of his stands during the pandemic, but he also wants support from people across the political spectrum because he's promising to be tough on pharmaceutical companies. What's your take on this selection?
Well, I think it's very telling, again, as we've heard this evening, that we know that Trump is playing to his loyalists. And so this was, widely discussed when Robert Kennedy Jr. backed out of the election in October, encouraging his supporters to fall in line with Donald Trump. And it was always suspected that he was going to be this cabinet choice. So I think it's actually going to be quite telling and interesting. I mean, one of the things that is really concerning, of course, is a lot of the mis and disinformation that was spread around the COVID-19 pandemic and some of the practices and policies that he potentially was mentioning. So I think we're going to see one of the things that, unlike many at the moment, is I personally am not panicking. As much as I foresaw everything that we see in terms of the picks and the numbers, I think even, with RFK, but definitely even going back to Matt Gaetz, I think that was obviously very strategic, and the fact that this nomination came, he resigns from the House, the Ethics Committee is going to come out with a report. Now they're not coming out with a report. Now he won't be held accountable. And I think a larger conversation that really should be held is about accountability. Accountability. Yes, we saw that the Justice Department is going to be dropping, potentially a number of charges or postponing indefinitely any sort of accountability for Donald Trump on the 34 felony accounts that he was convicted on. And so I think it's just really interesting that now we have cabinet choices who, again, qualifications are the least of the concerns for me. So I'm just going to sit back and wait and see.
You said, personally, I'm not panicking. Why would you say that? You're feeling pretty good about this elections, or you just kind of...
Oh, no, I'm calming. I'm taking, Black women in particular, I'm protecting my peace. And so we work overtime consistently. And so, no, I don't have any panic about choices and things that are come down. One thing I can definitely say is that truly we will see everything about Donald Trump that he has said about himself. We have seen to come through fruition. I believe the intentions that he has laid forward, whether it be deporting, millions of people come day one, when he takes in office, whether it be defunding the Department of Education, whether it be trying to promote wild conspiracy theories around anti-racism. I am not panicked. I am calm. I'm actually resting, and I am focusing on what I can do in my communities. But no, there's no sense of panic, and I honestly encourage others to not panic either. Why could you say that? Because the reality is we have to see how things are going to play out. And we saw that with everything from the overturn of Roe versus Wade, which again, many of us knew, and we said, don't panic, it's not coming. And then we saw what happened. So panicking doesn't seem to help the policy decisions that are going to be made.
Well, Eric, I know for a fact you're not panicking. You're probably celebrating. Let's mention another cabinet pick also getting some attention. Linda McMahon, slated to be the education secretary. USA Today reporting that at one point she said that she had a degree in education. Later it was learned she did not. CNN also reporting that she's at the center of a suit regarding child sexual abuse when she was in charge of World Wrestling Entertainment. The suit says that she and her husband Vince were aware of a ringside announcer who was sexually assaulting boys who worked for WWE. The suit says the abuse went on for years. She did nothing about it. Again, she's denying all of this, but this is raising questions about her care of children in the past and potential care of children as the education secretary. I guess the question is, do you think that this is sour grapes, that Democrats are complaining about these selections, Or is this a real question about the vetting process?
First of all, I think it was Rina who spoke last, and I agree with you. Don't panic. I mean, it's going to be okay. 2 weeks prior to the election, Joe Scarborough-Mika said Trump is Hitler, and then they, put their tail between their legs and go to Mar-a-Lago because they realized it was all hyperbole. It was trying to blow things out of proportion in front of the election. If I may just talk about qualifications just for 1 second, and then let's talk about the vote very quickly. Qualifications. Lloyd Austin, the current Secretary of Defense, is probably the most qualified human being ever to step into that role. He lost 13 American soldiers in Afghanistan in a botched pullout. Worse than that, I mean, God bless our military people. He put the whole country at risk when he had a severe, he went to the emergency room, told his subordinate to cover for him. The Secretary of Defense did that, put the whole country at risk momentarily. So qualifications aren't necessarily a precursor to a successful term in office. Very quickly, the Senate votes. These people are going to go through. I believe Matt Gaetz would have passed the Senate vote as well. A lot of blustering goes on prior when it's a controversial pick. The people, the senators, want to tell their constituents, "I got your back. I'm worried about this too." They all end up voting because Joel. I'm going to test how much you know about the swamp. I will tell you, they would all vote because every single one of them doesn't want to lose their job. For the next 4 years, Trump is president. That means 2 cycles of senators would come up. They'd be shown the door on their next election. The last cycle, the 6th year, Trump got those people elected. No one is going to get in front of the buzzsaw or the bullet train Donald Trump as far as the vote goes.
Well,
Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, I think he makes a good point here, doesn't he?
Right. I mean, look, I think that it would be quite delightful for a Democrat running against some of these senators in 2 years to run consistent ads about how they voted for Matt Gaetz, who had this kind of sex scandal hanging over his head. I don't think this is at all a gimme politically for those people who are up in 2 years. But to the point about qualifications, look, I've served in government for a number of years. I served as a career official in the Bush administration, as a political appointee in the Obama administration. It matters who's running those agencies. You want leaders who know the mission and know how to execute and know how to lead. My concern with the McMahon pick, for example, is that this is an individual who is there not to lead, but to undermine the department, to take it off of its mission, to weaken its goals. And as staff, as former staff, people in Washington who work in government as civil servants, professional experts, are looking around and wondering, will they even have a job to serve the American people? This government efficiency department that is going to be stood up, does that mean it's going to look like what happened to Twitter when it became X and 80% of the employees were fired and all the government expertise is gutted? That's what we're looking at right now.
But let me just kind of take Eric's argument, and you hear this from Trump supporters, that he won all of the 7 battleground states. He won the popular vote. His party won control of the House and the Senate. He should be allowed to pick who he wants in his cabinet.
We don't elect a dictator. We have a Congress. We have a Congress that is the most narrowly divided, seated Congress in 100 years. We have a Senate with 53 to 47, and Trump did not win the majority of the popular vote. So this is a democracy. This is a republic that allows for the balance of powers. And one cannot come in and unilaterally by fiat completely overturn the entire U.S. government. That requires give and take and negotiation, and we have a lot of elected officers serving in Washington.
Rina, let me ask you about the immigration issue. Was one of his signature issues, he's promised mass deportations if he got elected. It was an argument that resonated with a lot of Americans. They want this border crisis dealt with. And in the past, Obama administration deported a lot of people. He earned the moniker of the deporter-in-chief. So is it fair that Democrats are hammering Trump on this issue when they've also they've had 8 years of Obama, they had 4 years of Biden to try and come up with some remedy for the border crisis?
I think how we got Donald Trump in 2016 is because people were so tired of the comparisons, right? And one thing that Republicans love to talk about, at least in my circles of moderates, is that, hey, Obama deported more people than Trump did in his first term. So let's see what Trump does now. I am also of the school of thought, just like Professor Imani Cheers, where, I cannot be angry all the time. I cannot be outraged all the time. On a personal level, I don't quite like Donald Trump. I just think he's not the kind of human I want to hang out with. And I think it's kind of I think it's actually pretty sad that he's going to enter the White House again, but we have a duopoly here, so I'm not surprised. Actually, I had a feeling that he was going to win because he was the other choice. But my feelings about the man aside for a moment, being outraged all the time doesn't project a good look to the people that aren't paying attention all the time. And the vast majority of the American electorate is disassociated from the news coming out of Washington every day of the week. Insiders like me, we're on it by the minute, by the hour. And I'll say this, so in general, what people are going to miss if the left is just angry all the time and yelling at Trump all the time is missing an opportunity to grab the stuff that really matters, the stuff that's really going to impact their daily life. I mean, what people went to the polls with this year was a sense that the cost of living for them did not get better under Biden. And then they punished Kamala Harris because they thought she'd be an extension of Biden's 4 years. In general, I think bringing it back to the point I want to make about immigration is that we have a broken immigration system. I'm a new American. I'm the daughter of immigrants from Africa, from Uganda specifically, and India. And I've known my whole life that my parents followed the law, and they never jumped line. They followed the law so much in bringing over family members and friends that it took a lot of time and money and effort. And so, people who've immigrated here legally do take great issue with those who jump the line. And they start to look, and I don't want to speak about my personal situation or my family, but I just want to say the attitude that I've gleaned from a lot of folks is that they feel that these open borders are no good. And so I do think a lot of people are actually for mass deportations, but will never say so out loud. And I know that kind of sounds like that's a statement filled with hate, but a lot of people do look at Trump and say, this guy's willing to say what's in the back of my mind. And in general, if that's going to lead to a good policy outcome, we don't know. At this moment, we know Tom Homan's back in charge. That's a sheriff who believes in sending families over to deporting families together. And so, we have a situation here that's unusual. And I think everybody just ought to wait and see what happens on day one. Because if you remember 2016, the Muslim ban, that was a day one thing for Trump back then.
Yeah, Imani, to Rina's point, this closing message was about immigration and the economy. In fact, we've got some sound from the president-elect prior to the election the night before. Let's listen to that, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
So I'd like to begin by asking you a very, very easy, simple question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? With your vote tomorrow, I will end inflation, I will stop the invasion of criminals coming into our country, and I will bring back the American dream. You're going to have the American dream back.
Imani, that message made inroads with Latinos and young black males. Can you give me your thoughts on that closing message?
I mean, I think the question is that the reality is that people's memories are incredibly short. And so whether they can remember vividly what happened exactly 4 years ago, or whether they want to even recall January 6, 2021, I think it's also really important that people are hurting today. They're hurting today. They are going to the grocery store, they're going to the gas pump, and they are seeing prices continuing to rise and everywhere around them except their wages. And it is infuriating. So what do? You immediately put that ire, that anger at quote unquote the president, the policies, et cetera. And so, of course, it was a winning, clearly a winning closing argument. I just don't think it was a very accurate one. And so while there are, yes, inflation is incredibly high. Yes, in some places, crime is overall rising. And also in many cities, crime is not. To run on xenophobic disinformation and quite frankly, just racism is disturbing, to say the least. But as we saw with the results, it resonated. It resonated because a lot of people, you mentioned Black and Latino men, small numbers, right, overall, but still, again, also, just like young, angry white men, want to find someone else to blame for their problems, want to point to the other. And when you have an entire campaign that has been run for 9 years blaming the other, in this case, migrants, criminals, et cetera, on their current issues, I think then you find a message that resonates with people.
Eric, we're running short of time, and Joel brought up Elon Musk. What kind of a role do you see him playing in this new administration?
Major role. And I know he's beloved by President Trump. You know, the Democrats ran, we hate Trump. He's a bigot. He's a racist. He's a Nazi, and it didn't work. There was no policy. And I think we started this conversation out saying, you know, it's got to change. Democrats can. I'm the one who's on the show. I said there will never be another American president not named Donald Trump. And if the Democrats get their act together, they'll start to run on policy, not just against the guy. Ask me the question again. I apologize.
I was going to ask you about Elon Musk. I think you said he's going to have a major role.
A major role. Department of Government Efficiency will cut down. And I think Linda McMahon is in Department of Education specifically to be a hatchet woman in that place as well. So, sorry.
Let me, because I think you touched on this, and I want to get Joel in the conversation, because I know you've been involved in Democratic politics for a long time. After an election, everybody does an autopsy. There's a lot of finger pointing.
Brutal.
What went wrong? What do the Democrats need to do moving forward, do you think?
Yeah, look, there's a very vigorous debate right now, and there are a lot of people who are engaging in what I call confirmation bias, basically saying, wow, if they had just been more progressive like I am, we would have won. So there's a bit of a disbelief still in the party. But I do think that the bottom line is people are hurting. The questions about the economy, the questions about inflation, about the programs to deal with it, those are actual policies that President Biden has been engaged in promoting that were not communicated effectively. The concerns about immigration and the border are real. There are deep concerns, and having a plan beyond just Trump opposed what we wanted in the Congress, that is needed. But I have to say one additional point that I think is very troubling and makes me nervous is the question about attacking the extreme minorities in our country, like transgender individuals. The consistent harping on and attacking transgender individuals, it's sort of like a society's ethics are identified in how we treat the most vulnerable. And to me, that's very disturbing, and I hope that changes. That did have a big impact, these culture war issues on the margins, and the margins are what turned this election.
Joel, thank you for your observations. I want to thank all of our panelists for engaging. It was a lively discussion. Really appreciate it. And that's going to do it for us. We're going to leave it right there. Thanks so much for watching another edition of The Heat.